Some people scroll through social media every day, but almost never post anything. No photos, no updates, no stories. They watch quietly. They observe. They keep their lives mostly invisible. And to the outside world, that silence often gets misunderstood. People assume they're insecure, or antisocial, or hiding something. But psychology suggests something very different. People who don't post on social media usually don't lack confidence. They lack the need for validation. Their sense of self isn't built on likes, comments, or public approval. Instead of asking, how will this be perceived? They ask, does this actually matter to me? And that difference changes everything. Social media is designed around external feedback loops. You post something, you wait, you refresh. Reactions arrive, likes, comments, views. Each one delivers a small psychological reward. Over time, the brain begins to associate visibility with value. Being seen starts to feel like being validated. But people who don't post often bypass that system entirely. They regulate their emotions internally, not socially. They don't need constant proof that they exist or that they're interesting. Their sense of worth doesn't rise and fall with engagement metrics. Another major reason is boundaries. People who avoid posting usually draw a clear line between their public identity and their private life. They don't feel the need to turn personal moments into content. They don't experience life through the lens of performance. Happiness for them is something to be experienced, not documented. They understand something subtle but powerful. The moment you share something online, it no longer belongs only to you. It becomes open to interpretation, judgment, comparison. So they choose silence over exposure, not because they're afraid, but because they're selective. There's also a strong link to self-awareness. People who don't post are often highly reflective. They think before sharing. They notice how easily identity turns into performance online. They recognize how quickly expression can become expectation. Once you post something, people begin to associate you with it, and maintaining that image takes effort. For some, opting out feels like relief. Some people describe a quiet moment when they realize something has changed. They used to post milestones, birthdays, trips, small wins, and then one day they noticed they didn't feel the urge to share. No announcement, no explanation. Just a sense of calm. They enjoyed the moment fully without checking how it looked or how it would land. That absence of pressure felt lighter than any reaction they used to receive. Psychologists also associate this behavior with lower dopamine dependency. Social platforms are engineered around anticipation and reaction. The notification badge, the vibration, the refresh. Each one trains the brain to seek another hit of feedback. But people who rarely post tend to rely less on these artificial rewards. They find satisfaction elsewhere, through real experiences. Deep focus, private relationships. This doesn't mean they dislike people. In fact, many of them value connection deeply. They just prefer depth over visibility. A few meaningful conversations instead of hundreds of surface-level reactions. However, it's important to understand something. Not everyone who stays silent does so from peace. For some, silence is a form of protection. Social media creates a constant awareness of being watched, even when you're not posting. That pressure can be exhausting. People worry about being misunderstood, judged, ignored, so they retreat. Not because they don't want connection, but because the cost of visibility feels too high. Psychologists describe this as self-presentational pressure, the mental strain of managing how you're perceived. For sensitive or introspective individuals, that pressure can outweigh the benefits of sharing. In those cases, silence isn't weakness. You can see this in people who open an app with the intention to post. They type a caption, delete it, rewrite it. They imagine how it might be received, how it could be misunderstood, and eventually they close the app. Not because they have nothing to say, but because saying it publicly feels heavier than keeping it to themselves. It's emotional regulation. Another key factor is identity stability. People who don't post often have a stronger internal sense of who they are. They don't need to constantly curate or update their image for others. Their identity exists whether it's seen or not. They're comfortable being consistent offline, even if no one is watching. This kind of stability reduces the urge to perform. There's also something psychologists call psychological ownership. It's the feeling that certain experiences belong deeply to you. A memory, a moment, a realization. For some people, posting those moments feels like giving up ownership. Once it's online, it's no longer private. So they keep certain parts of life untouched. For example, some people talk about a moment that mattered deeply to them, a personal achievement, a quiet conversation, a difficult realization, something meaningful that never appeared online. Not because it wasn't important, but because it was. Keeping it private made it feel more real, more personal, like it belonged entirely to them. Not hidden, protected. In a culture that encourages constant sharing, choosing privacy can feel almost rebellious. But for many, it's simply intentional. They want to live moments fully, not split their attention between experiencing and documenting. They don't think in captions, they think in feelings. This often leads to greater presence. Cooking without photographing it, traveling without tagging it, enjoying something without wondering how it will look online. Over time, this changes how life feels. Time slows down, experiences feel fuller, attention returns inward, and finally, there's intention. Some people simply choose to live offline. Not because they can't keep up, but because they don't want to. They've seen how visibility can blur into performance, how sharing can turn into pressure, and they decide consciously to step back. In a world that constantly asks you to broadcast your life, choosing not to post is often a quiet form of control. Not everyone is meant to be visible. Some people are meant to be grounded, and psychology suggests that's not a weakness, it's a preference. Because being unseen is not the same as being insignificant. Some of the most important parts of identity are formed quietly, without witnesses, without approval, without an audience. And sometimes the most human thing you can do is keep something entirely for yourself.